She walked through the metallic halls of the alien flagship, her feet bare, her hands chained in front of her. The chains made soft clinking sounds with every step. Around her, heavily armed guards from the Galactic Dominion watched her closely, as if she might explode at any second. She didn't scream, didn't struggle. She just looked forward with calm, dark eyes. She looked too quiet to be dangerous, a mistake they would soon regret. Thousands of alien crew members stopped what they were doing to look at her. Whispers ran through the air like electricity. This was the first time in history the Dominion had captured a human. Many believed humans were extinct, destroyed in the last war. Some had never even seen one before. But here she was, young, small, silent, and chained. Captain Voran stood tall at the center of the bridge, watching her. Arrival on the main screen. His golden armor shone under the command lights. He narrowed his eyes. "Is this the best Earth had left?" he said with a smirk. "A girl in chains?" But his smile didn't last long. The moment her eyes looked up at the bridge camera, he felt something cold crawl down his spine. It was just a glance, but it felt like she was looking through. The ship itself. She was taken to a holding cell deep in the flagship. Scientists and officers stood behind thick glass, scanning her body and reading her vitals. One of them, a pale alien with 4 glowing eyes, frowned. "This is not normal," he said. "Her brain activity is ... too high. She's calm, but the energy in her neural network is off the charts. Something's wrong," the captain ordered. "Her move to the interrogation chamber. If she's dangerous, we'll find out soon," he said. "Let's hear what this creature has to say." They brought her into the cold, dark room. She sat in a chair made of steel. The lights flickered slightly as she was strapped in. Room had no windows, only cameras and recording devices. Captain Voran stood behind the glass, watching with his officers. Loudspeaker crackled. "State your name and origin." She said nothing. "Speak, or we will force you," the voice warned. She looked up slowly. Her lips moved for the first time. She whispered something too soft to hear clearly. One of the guards leaned closer to her. "What did you say?" "Shh." She lifted her head. Her voice was clear now, calm but heavy. "You're not ready for what follows." Suddenly every light in the room turned off at once. The screen in front of the captain went black. Across the entire flagship, systems flickered, then froze. Engines, weapons, shields, everything stopped working. "Report!" Captain Voran shouted. "What just happened?" No one answered. The bridge crew looked at each other in fear. Their control panels weren't responding. AI units had gone offline. The ship wasn't damaged, it was just paused, like it had forgotten how to move. In the dark room, the girl still sat in the chair, not moving, not smiling, just waiting. The guards around her pulled their weapons, but felt the weight of fear pressing down on them. One of them whispered she didn't do anything. She just spoke. Voran watched her through the emergency screen, which now showed only static. He leaned forward and whispered to himself, "What are you?" Inside the room, the girl turned her head slightly as if she heard him from across the ship. And then she smiled just a little. It wasn't cruel, it wasn't kind. It was a smile of someone who had waited a long time for this moment. Far across space, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, something began to move. The ship floated silently in the dark. No engines, no noise, no lights. The flagship Varkan Prime, once the pride of the Galactic Dominion, now hung frozen like a dead star. Inside the bridge, Captain Voran stood motionless, staring at the black screens in front of him. Every system had shut down the moment the human girl spoke. Not with a scream, not with violence, just words. He slammed his fist on the console. "Restart all systems now," he shouted. The tech officers tried everything. Manual overrides. Backup power, emergency protocols, nothing worked. It was like the ship had gone to sleep and refused to wake up. Panic began to rise. They had never seen anything like this. "She's doing this," one of the junior officers said, his voice shaking. "It started when she spoke." "That's impossible," Voran snapped. "She has no weapon, no tech, not even armor. She's just a human. But deep inside, Voren didn't believe his own words, the way she looked into the camera. It was like she knew something, like she wasn't afraid at all. Back in the interrogation room, the girl remained still. She hadn't moved since the system shut down. The guards stood around her nervously, guns shaking in their hands. One of them, a young officer named Krav, stepped closer. "Stand up," he barked. "Whatever trick you used, stop it now." She slowly turned her head toward him. Her voice was soft, almost like she was talking to a child. "I didn't stop your ship. It stopped itself. It remembered." Krav blinked. "What do you mean, remembered?" She looked up at the ceiling. "You built this ship on stolen pieces, forgotten technology, war debris, human remains. Covered it in metal, but it still remembers what it was." Suddenly, the lights flickered once again. One of the wall panels sparked and old video footage started playing across the room. It was a grainy, silent recording, human soldiers being burned alive, cities falling, children crying out. The Dominion's war against Earth, files that were erased, lost forever, now playing themselves without command. On the bridge, everyone turned toward the main screen. The same footage appeared. Old Dominion war crimes, forbidden records, confessions that had been deleted. "Where is this coming from?" a technician shouted. It's not in the system." Another replied. "It's like the ship is remembering." Voren's face turned pale. "She's doing this. She's forcing the ship to show these ... to show our past." The girl was still calm. She didn't move, didn't blink. "Captain Voren activated the emergency comms." This is Captain Voren. "I'm ordering her termination now." The interrogation room, the guards raised their weapons. Krav hesitated. "She's not resisting. Shoot her," the command screamed through their earpieces. But before anyone could fire, every weapon in the room suddenly shut off. The metal heated up in their hands and dropped to the floor with a loud clang. Sparks flew, smoke rose, then silence. "She doesn't need to move," Krav whispered. "Backing away, she just speaks, and the ship obeys." One of the scientists watching from the lab gasped. "She's not a prisoner. She's the trigger. The ship. This ship might have been waiting for her." Back on the bridge, Voren stared at the screen. The girl raised her head and looked directly into the camera again. "I didn't come here to escape," she said. "I came to make you remember." With that, every monitor across the ship lit up in red. A voice not hers, but deep and ancient, echoed through every hallway, every speaker. "Processing. Memory. Truth protocol initiated." For the first time in his life, Captain Voren felt true fear. Because deep in the ship's core, something had awakened, and it was listening to her. The ship's halls, once bright and buzzing with activity, now felt like a tomb. Red lights pulsed slowly along the walls. Alarms remained silent. Yet something far worse filled the air, a strange hum, low and steady, like the heartbeat of something waking up. Across the Dominion flagship, officers and soldiers tried to bring systems back online, but nothing responded. Every screen showed the same words: Truth Protocol Phase 1. In the lab chamber, one of the Dominions. Top AI engineers, Commander Yilrek, stared in horror as his data console began to speak without being touched. It was playing internal ship logs, logs that had been erased years ago. His voice from 12 years earlier came through clearly. "Execute the final order. Burn Sector 14. No survivors." He stumbled back, shaking. I thought that file was deleted." It wasn't just him. All across the ship, crew members were hearing recordings of their own voices, their own commands, their darkest secrets. The girl, still sitting in her chair in the interrogation room, hadn't moved an inch. Her eyes were closed now, as if she was simply listening. Krav, the young guard who had been closest to her, stood frozen. He didn't understand how she was doing this, but he knew she hadn't touched anything. She hadn't hacked the systems. She just ... arrived. "She's not attacking us," he said quietly to the others. "She's revealing us." In the bridge, Captain Voren stood watching the chaos through the emergency feed. Reports came in from every level. Crew members were collapsing. Some were screaming about voices. Others were running, trying to escape. A medic officer shouted into the comms, They're experiencing memory seizures, like their minds are being overwritten by events they forgot or buried. Vorin growled. No one forgets that much by accident. One of the older admirals, pale and shaking, whispered to him, Sir, if the ship has stored everything we've done, she can control what it shows. She might not just be a messenger. She might be punishment. Vorin turned sharply. We are the Dominion. We've ruled the stars for 100 years. She is one girl. But even as he spoke, the flagship itself disagreed. New images appeared on the screens, battle footage no one had ever seen, of humans falling in the last war, entire colonies, begging for help before being wiped out by Dominion flame cruisers. Not propaganda. Real, raw, unedited. The Dominion had erased these events, covered them with lies, but the ship had not forgotten. Back in the interrogation room, the girl opened her eyes. She looked at Krav and asked softly, Do you hear them? Here. Who? Krav stammered. The ones who died. The ones who were never named? Krav didn't respond. He could hear whispers now, just faintly, like voices crawling through the walls. He didn't know if it was in his head or real. The girl turned her head toward the ceiling and said something strange. Something not in Dominion language, and yet the ship responded. A low voice, mechanical and ancient, echoed through the halls once more. Memory leak, stage complete, truth replication in progress. Vorin grabbed his cum device. Evacuate the flagship now. But the docking bays were sealed. She's locking us in, an officer cried. The ship won't. Let us leave. She doesn't want to destroy us, the admiral whispered. She wants us to see, to remember. The girl stood up slowly. The chair's restraints melted off her arms like soft metal. No one stopped her. She stepped toward the door, chains still around her wrists, and paused. Then she whispered one word. Witness. And suddenly, every soul aboard the flagship saw it. Not on a screen, but in their minds. A memory not their own. Earth burning. A child crying. A world silenced. And now, Earth was speaking back. The screaming began in Sector 9. A soldier dropped his weapon and clutched his head, falling to the floor, eyes wide in terror. It's me, he shouted.
I made myself.
I was there. I gave the order. Didn't know they were children? Others turned to look, confused and scared. But soon, more crew members started collapsing, shaking, crying, some even laughing uncontrollably. The hallucinations weren't just images. They were memories. Real, painful, vivid memories. But many of them weren't from this lifetime. It was as if the ship had broken the line between what was remembered and what was forgotten. Captain. Vorin watched the chaos unfold on the bridge. Officers screamed at empty corners. Others begged for forgiveness. Some simply froze like statues, mouths open in silent horror. The red lights of the Varkon Prime pulsed faster now, matching the rhythm of panic that spread through the ship like fire. Get me a secure channel to Central Command, Vorin shouted. There's no signal, the comms officer cried. All long-range transmissions are being blocked from inside the ship. By who? Iran demanded. A voice replied from the speaker, but it wasn't from any officer. By me, the girl's voice. Calm, cold. Everywhere. Stop this madness. Vorin yelled into the mic. You're going to kill everyone. That depends, she said. Not everyone has lied. Vorin's blood ran cold. Back in the medical bay, 2 Dominion scientists had locked themselves inside trying to study her biological data. But even their screens turned against them. One monitor displayed private messages between them, hidden files showing how they had altered reports during the war. Their crimes exposed by their own machines. One scientist tried to destroy the console with a plasma cutter, but the console fought back. Electricity surged through his arm and knocked him backward. The other watched in silence as the lights dimmed, then whispered, She doesn't need to kill us. She's making us destroy ourselves, in the main. Hallway Krav stood alone outside the interrogation room. The girl had not left. She simply stood inside, chains still around her wrists, head tilted slightly upward like she was listening to something only she could hear. He watched her, his weapon still hanging useless at his side. A voice played in his mind now. A child's voice, a girl's crying for her father. Then a scream. Krav felt like he knew her. He had never been to Earth, never fought in the war, but the voice in his head felt personal, real, as if she had placed the memory inside him. He looked at her. Again. "What are you?" he whispered. Her eyes opened slowly. "I am what's left." Suddenly another officer ran down the corridor, eyes wide, shaking Krav. "The Admiral, he's dead. Just collapsed." Said he saw his mother before the bombs fell. She died in the Earth's purge. And now he saw her again. Krav didn't answer. He just stared at the girl. He finally understood. She wasn't forcing pain on the ship. She was unlocking it. The Varkan Prime had been built using old wreckage from fallen warships, Earth ships, human tech. Scraps that had witnessed horror, they remembered. And now with her presence, her voice, they were speaking again. On the bridge. Captain Vorin turned to the last functioning officer. "Bring her here, sir. The guards won't go near her. Then I will." Vorin stormed out of the bridge, walking fast down the dark corridors. Screams echoed from nearby rooms. Voices cried out for forgiveness. Some were singing songs from Earth that hadn't been heard in decades. When he finally reached the hallway, he saw her through the glass, standing calm in the middle of chaos. She didn't flinch as he approached. He stepped in front of her and growled, "Why now? Why show us this?" She looked at him with eyes full of something deeper than rage. "Memory. Because you buried the truth," she said, "and truth doesn't stay buried forever." And then the ship spoke again, in 1,000 voices all at once. Truth verified. Lies detected. Punishment pending. Vorin stepped back, heart pounding. The flagship, his pride, his power, was now his judge, and the girl in chains was its voice. The silence didn't last long. A loud, deep vibration rolled through the halls of the Varkan Prime, like thunder trapped inside steel. Lights flickered from red to white, then to black. Crew members froze, holding their breath. For a moment, it felt like the ship itself was about to scream. Then it appeared. Through the flagship's wide forward windows, a ship unlike anything in Dominion records entered the system. It had no name, no signal, no markings. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply floated outside the Varkan Prime, quiet and still. On the bridge, the officers stared in confusion and fear. "What ship is that?" Someone asked. No answer. Another screen activated without command, and an external view of the mysterious ship filled it. Its surface wasn't smooth. It looked like layers of old, broken tech, melted together like bone and metal. Dominion scanners could not read it. Its power core was silent. No heat signatures, no life signs. And yet, it was watching Captain Vorin. Arrived back on the bridge, breathing hard, saw the ship, and stopped. His voice was low. Where did it come from? Communications officer turned. "We don't know. It wasn't on any scanners until it was already here. It just ... appeared." The girl's voice echoed through the bridge speakers again. They're listening now. Everyone turned toward the sound. But she was not there, not physically. Her voice was in the ship, in its metal, in its heart. Krav stood near the medical deck, watching the mysterious ship from a side window. He didn't understand what it was, but he could feel something like gravity pressing against his bones. The same feeling he had when the girl looked at him. Heavy, honest. "Final, Captain." Vorin barked. "Raise shields." No response. An officer shouted. "We've lost control again. Arm weapons. Offline." The ship was helpless. Suddenly the external ship glowed faintly. A circle of white light formed around its center, and then a voice rang. Out. But this time, it wasn't hers. It wasn't human. It wasn't Dominion. It was ... everything, every known language, every forgotten word, all spoken at once, layered and clear. Confession required. Panic spread like wildfire. "What does that mean?" someone asked. the girl's voice returned. It means the truth is not enough anymore. Vorin stared at the screen. She brought them here. That thing, that ship, it came for us. No, said the Admiral's assistant softly. It came for justice. Then the girl began to speak again, calmly, steadily, as if reading from an ancient book. She named places, battles, victims, events the Dominion had hidden for decades. Every time she spoke, the mysterious ship outside pulsed with light. It was listening, measuring. Then she asked the first question: who ordered the destruction of Haven 7? No one answered. The lights dimmed. A surge ran through the deck. One of the officers screamed as fire shot through his console, burning his hands. Again, her voice echoed. Who ordered the destruction of Haven 7? Vorin clenched his fists. Stop this. She's manipulating us. That's not manipulation, whispered Krav through the combs. That's judgment. Then an old admiral stepped forward, tears in his eyes. It was me, he said. Followed orders. I didn't question. I told them it was an empty colony. The ship outside pulsed once more. This time it responded. Confession logged. And then silence. The lights turned white. The consoles rebooted. One officer shouted, Systems. Systems are coming back. But no one cheered. They just looked at the screen, at the silent ship outside. Vorin gritted his teeth. What do they want? The girl's voice answered. You were never meant to forget. Now, one by one, you will remember. And the ship outside slowly turned, showing hundreds more like it waiting behind it in the void. The stars behind the silent ship began to shift. From the shadows of deep space, more vessels emerged, slow, quiet, and terrifying. Hundreds of them, all built from lost technology, forgotten parts, wreckage from wars no one spoke about. They formed a wide circle around the Varkan Prime, not moving, not firing, just waiting. Inside the Dominion flagship, fear thickened the air. Soldiers clutched their weapons, though none of them worked. Engineers tried to reroute power to escape drives, but nothing responded. The ship no longer obeyed its crew. Listened only to her, the girl, still standing alone in the interrogation room, her wrists bound by chains that meant nothing now. She stared forward, calm and focused, like she was in conversation with something far away, or something deep inside the ship. On the bridge, Captain Vorin tried to remain in control. He turned to the remaining officers. This is a trick. These ships are old derelict. Scare tactics. Prepare a response. Visual feed open now. The main screen blinked. Direct transmission from the unknown fleet played. No face appeared. No body. Just symbols, languages, and then a single voice. Powerful, ancient, layered with 1,000 tones. Confession required. The screen split into 12 panels, each showing a face from the Varkan Prime crew. All 12 officers had been part of Earth's last burning. They stared at the screen, frozen, as the voice continued. Failure to respond will result in memory extraction. What is that supposed to mean? One officer snapped. Then the girl in chains spoke again, her voice soft but echoing through every room. It means you don't get to hide anymore. Suddenly, one of the officers screamed and dropped to the floor, his body seizing. His mind was being opened not with machines but with truth. The screen showed his memories without mercy. Orders to fire on refugee ships, lies spoken to command, innocent lives traded for favor. It wasn't just shown, it was felt. Everyone on the bridge felt his guilt as if it were their own. The female officers began sobbing. Stop, stop, please. Confess, the voice replied. I did it, she cried. I knew what they were. I pressed the button. It was me. The screen stopped. Her memory faded from the view. The lights in her section returned to normal. Confession logged. Captain Vorin could barely breathe. His hands trembled. The girl's voice returned, almost gently. The ship is not a weapon. It's a listener. And now it's your turn. More officers confessed. Quietly, shaking, crying. One by one, they admitted what they had hidden, what they had buried. But Vorin stood firm. I did what I had to. I saved the Dominion. The girl turned toward the nearest wall and whispered, "Final stage." A new voice came over the ship, not hers, not the ancient fleet, but the ship itself. One lie remains. Everyone turned toward Captain Voran. Lies, he snapped. You think I'm lying? No. Gave my life to protect our future. The voice replied with no emotion. Truth does not fear light. Voran raised his hand in fury. I did what was needed. But the girl looked up one last time, her eyes glowing faintly now. Then say it, she whispered. Say what? You did. Voran stepped back, his chest rising and falling. He said nothing. The lights dimmed again. The ship began to shake. Judgment loading. Krav, still watching from a hallway camera, whispered to himself. He should have confessed. And far above, the circle of ships began to glow, as if preparing for something final. The Varkan Prime groaned as energy pulsed through its frame. Lights along the corridors flashed red, then dimmed to black. Only the main bridge remained lit, bathed in cold white glow. The voice of the ancient fleet echoed again through the ship. Judgment. Protocol. Final stage. Everyone knew what it meant. One lie left, one truth still hidden, and all eyes turned to Captain Voran. He stood frozen in the center of the bridge, face pale, lips tight. Around him, officers he had led for years now looked at him with fear, not because of what he might do, but because of what the ship might do to him. The girl's voice came back, quiet and heavy like falling snow. They confessed. You remained silent. That means your lie is the last. Voran's fists clenched. This is madness. I built this fleet. I brought peace to the galaxy. The ship answered in the deep, layered voice once more. Peace built on a show is still fire. A tremor shook the ship again, deeper this time. Across the bridge, the screens lit up with memory files, each flashing the same file number. E0 Krav, watching from the lower decks, frowned. What's E0? He asked. The scientist beside him whispered. I thought it was a myth. It's the order that ended Earth in a single strike. The command that vaporized their last cities. The main screen activated. A video began playing. It showed a younger Captain Voran standing inside a Dominion war chamber, surrounded by commanders. Is Earth neutralized? One asked. Voran looked into the camera. Not yet, he replied. But I'll handle it. No survivors. No monuments. No memory. The officers on the bridge gasped. The video continued. EO authorized, Voran said. Burn it from the stars. And with that, the screen went black. Now the silence was louder than anything else. The girl, still standing in her cell, didn't speak. She didn't have to. The ship responded instead. Lie detected. Last chance to confess. Voran looked around the bridge. No one would save him now. Even the guards had stepped back. Sweat poured down his face. His legs trembled. I had to, he said softly. They wouldn't surrender. They refused to kneel. I had to end it. You erased a world. They would have done the same to us. They did not. Voran dropped to his knees. I thought I was protecting us. I didn't know. The ship replied with one final phrase. Intention does not erase impact. A single beam of pale white light descended from the ceiling above Voran. It wasn't heat. It wasn't force. It was memory. The ship was showing him everything, not as data, but as feeling. Every cry, every flame, every death, Voran screamed. He collapsed, shaking, eyes wide, breath short. When the light faded, he was still alive, but broken, silent. Then the girl finally moved. She stepped forward, the last of her chains falling from her wrists. Her voice was not angry, not cruel, just steady. Now that you remember, you may live. And just like that, all systems on the Varkan Prime came back online. The lights returned to normal. The ship stopped shaking. Weapons, engines, and comms all responded again. Ancient ships outside didn't fire. They simply turned one by one and vanished back into the dark. They had come not for war, but for truth. And now, their task was done. The silence after judgment felt heavier than any explosion. The great warship, Varkan Prime, once feared across star systems, now drifted quietly in space. Not damaged, not destroyed, but changed. Systems were fully restored. Engines were ready. Weapons were online, but no one gave any orders. No one dared move. Captain Vorin sat slumped on the bridge floor, eyes open but empty. Whatever the ship had shown him, whatever memory it had forced him to feel, had shattered something inside. He didn't speak, didn't resist, simply existed. Officers stood around him in stunned silence, none willing to help him up. In the lower deck, Krav slowly walked down the corridor toward the cell, or what was once a cell. The door was open now, the lights soft and warm. The girl stood alone in the center of the room, facing away from him. Her chains were gone. He stepped in quietly. "What happens now?" he asked. She turned to him slowly, her voice gentle. "Now you remember." Krav nodded. He didn't fully understand what she was, or what she had done, but he knew one thing. No one would ever see humans the same way again. The Dominion thought they had ended Earth, burned it, forgotten it. But Earth had not forgotten them. She stepped past him, walking slowly toward the main lift. Soldiers moved aside without a word. No one pointed weapons at her. No one dared speak. She didn't give orders. She didn't need to. On the bridge, the crew watched as the lift doors opened. She entered calmly, like she'd always belonged there. Captain Vorin looked up at her. His voice was dry, barely a whisper. "Who are you?" She met his eyes. There was no hate in her expression, no pride, just something old and deep, like the sea before a storm. "I am what your war created." Vorin swallowed hard. "A weapon." She shook her head. "A voice." He lowered his eyes again, silent. She stepped forward to the command station, then turned to face the crew. Her voice echoed through every speaker on the ship, not loud, but full. "You thought Earth was a place, a planet, a target? Is more than that." She paused, then continued. "Earth is every scream that went unanswered, every truth you buried, every life you erased to feel powerful, and now I am its memory." No one dared interrupt. Even the AI remained quiet. Then, for the first time since she boarded the Varkan Prime, she said her name. "I am Earth." The words fell like thunder. One officer collapsed to his knees, tears in his eyes. Others looked away in shame. Every soul aboard that ship had heard the name Earth 100 times, in battle reports, in history files, in propaganda speeches. But now they heard it as a person, alive, standing in front of them. The bridge fell into deep silence. Then something unexpected. The ship itself responded gently. The glowing light shifted from white to blue. The air felt lighter. The walls seemed to breathe. It wasn't fear anymore. It was peace. Outside, the ancient ships in the distance slowly vanished into the void. No jump signatures, no sound. They had come for the truth. And now they were gone. The girl, Earth, looked to the stars ahead. And then, without speaking, she gave the ship a silent command. The Varkan Prime turned slowly, away from Dominion space, toward something new, for the first time in its long, bloody history. It was not heading to war. It was following a voice that remembered,